All right, let's get started. So, hi everyone. I'm Kaki. I am part of the team at Auggie. Just a reminder, it's the community powered platform where parents learn from experts and from each other. So, we're so thrilled to have you here today. We're teaming up with Happy Healthy Eaters and Brainiac Foods to talk about how to raise happy, healthy little eaters and what that looks like in real life. So, from food habits to nutrition to brain development, all the in betweens. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded and we'd love for you to drop questions into the Zoom chat as we go. We should have some time at the end to get to all of those questions after our main discussion. With that being said, I'll pass it over now to our amazing panelists so each of them can introduce themselves. Nita, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Nita Sharda. I'm a local registered dietitian and I have two boys. We're out of the newborn and toddler phase, but admittedly, something that I often say is that I really feel like we're thriving in the food department. There's other departments of parenting that are, really, really wild and magical and a bit more challenging for me, but I feel really good about sort of the feeding journey that we've been on. So my boys are 6 and 8, and I'm the co-founder of Happy Healthy Eaters, and I'll let Jess share a little bit more about the work that we do as well.
Yes, my name is Jessica Penner, also a registered dietitian here in Winnipeg, Canada. And I have to say, I part of my journey becoming a dietitian was that I experienced a lot of picky eating as a kid, and now, so this has always been a topic of fascination, something I've overcome, and I love helping parents along in this journey as well. And yeah, so we founded Happy Healthy Eaters 5 years ago, just right when the pandemic hit. And we launched an e-course for starting solids. And now we've been growing with our audience, and we have Feeding Toddlers Confidently, our second e-course, where we can continue to support parents on that feeding journey. Now I'll pass it over to Katharine on Brainiac.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Hi, everyone. I'm Katharine. I head up product for the brand Brainiac that you can find on your local Target and Walmart shelves. First and foremost, I'm a new mom, so I'm right in the thick of it with all of you. My daughter Caroline is 10 months old and she's as rambunctious as ever. So we are right in the midst of that, starting solids and progressing solids journey. I'm a classically trained chef, and so now I focus my day to day on how we launch delicious products on shelves. And all of our portfolio is focused on delivering brain nutrition in convenient formats, so you can pack your diaper bag all the way through lunchbox and beyond. Really excited to talk to you today.
Amazing. We're so excited to have all of you. So let's dive in. I'd love to start with defining what we mean when we say success around food. So, Nita, what does it actually mean to raise a happy, healthy eater?
Yeah, you know what? I think that the word success can mean something really different for every parent. And when I was looking at that chat, we've got parents here that have babies that are 4 months old. We had another one who's experiencing a lot of challenges and feeding their 2-year-old with a varying appetite. And something that we like to talk a lot about is actually reframing how we view success from how much or how little my child ate to are they actually just enjoying this dining experience? And so as you can see, if we're feeding our children 20,000 meals, not counting snacks, over childhood, we really have to start to understand that feeding is parenting. It's a really important attachment ritual. So our business name, it's Happy Healthy Eaters. I'll break down how we actually think that that name ties in really beautifully to what success could look like. And it's a bit of a mindset shift. That's what I'm asking of everyone. So the first thing is happy. We really want children to have a positive and healthy relationship with food, but also that entire dining experience. I didn't mention this earlier, but in my city, I actually practice as a private practice dietitian, and I'm working so hard with my adult patients to help them unlearn a lot of behaviors and messages they learned from diet culture and relearning how to eat intuitively. And actually, your baby is born with a lot of skills to practice intuitive eating. So we want to nurture that. So that's what we want. We want kids that are happy. Who doesn't want a happy child? I think as parents, that's all. It's kind of at the core of what we want for them. When it comes to healthy, we are dietitians. We have a huge passion for childhood nutrition, and you might not have heard about that first 1000 days. I'm not going to spill the tea on that too much because Catherine's going to chat with you about that. But this really is a critical period of growth and brain development for your child, and we need adequate nutrients to help support and fuel that growth. So, yeah, we want your kids to be meeting their iron requirements and getting in enough fat and healthy nutrients like choline and omega-3, but not at the expense of, you know, not nurturing that trust between the parent and the caregiver or the parent and the child. And then finally, we want your child to be an independent eater. So we know that children as early as 6 months can start to practice some self-feeding. And certainly by about 8 months, we want them doing the majority of that self-feeding with, of course, some of our assistance as well. I don't know if anyone's ever given their 6-month-old an open cup. Like, it's just not going to work. They need our help and our guidance. So yeah, we want kids to feel good about food. We want them to meet nutrient requirements, and we want them to be as independent as possible, but in a way that's also developmentally appropriate. And I think, again, none of that has anything to do with how much or how little your child is eating at one particular meal.
Amazing. I love that so much. It's very hard when you're in that role to kind of give them control, but it's so, so important. I agree. So, for anyone on the panel, what role does mealtime environment play with creating that happy, healthy eater?
I can take this one. And so the mealtime environment, exactly where they're eating, what's going on around them, can really support that long-term goal of them becoming a happy, healthy eater. As an example, we encourage parents to remove distractions when the child is eating, whether that be screens or movement. We really want them seated, preferably at a table, but that might not always happen, for safety. And just so that they can really tune in to their hunger and fullness cues, and be involved in this feeding experience, because they're learning how to eat. It can be surprising to hear this, but kids don't fully master chewing until they're age 4. So that's one way that the environment can really support that goal.
Great. And what have you seen are some common goals that kind of backfire for parents?
Yeah, again, if you have that nutrition goal, you're like, oh wow, first 1000 days, that is so critical. Got to get these nutrients in, and then you get worried about that can come out as pressuring your child, which tends to backfire, almost guaranteed, especially for our kids that are strong-willed. I don't know, you raise your hands if you have those. I have 2 of them. And so we really want to make sure that we're not employing any of those pressure tactics with our kids.
That's
I would
amazing.
also say, I will, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening can empathize to this. My goals have certainly backfired, and I feel that pressure so immensely as a parent. It makes me feel sad and frustrated, right? When I'm trying to make sure she's getting balanced, colorful fruits and vegetables, some protein, some fats. So I will say, as a parent, I'm also trying to concentrate on what makes me happy and feel good as a parent feeding my child. Because I think if I'm happy and calm and relaxed, they're gonna feel. Hopefully, Caroline feels a little bit of the same.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to jump in there, Catherine. I don't know if you've heard this, but what we've seen a lot from the literature is even if your child isn't actually eating the food that you've prepared, but they witness their caregivers experience joy from eating that food, they will one day on their own time grow up to enjoy eating that food. So, yeah, I mean, 20,000 meals, it's a marathon. It's absolutely not a sprint by any means.
Such great advice. Um, Transitioning a little bit to let's talk about toddlers because they can be a challenge all in their own. For Jessica, how can parents expect feeding to change when their babies now become those toddlers?
Yes, so when you started solids, that was like the first major transition of food wise because you went from this pure liquid diet and now you're offering your baby solid foods. And then somewhere around a year, they've been hopefully, if things are going along as planned, progressing with textures and a number of meals that they're eating, and around 12 months, they're probably getting around 40 to 60% of their calories from food. And at this time, a major shift happens, and hopefully, I can help the parents here that haven't reached that stage yet. Relax a little bit when it might happen to you. It's almost like a rite of passage in toddlerhood. We get messages daily about this where parents are saying, okay, my baby was such an adventurous eater. I could put anything in front of them and they would gobble it up. And now we have hit toddlerhood and they are rejecting all these foods that they used to eat. So just know that if this happens to you or it's happening to you, it's very common. And there's a few reasons why this happens. One of which is that their growth slows down dramatically. So if you can remember, your baby was born and then those cute little newborn onesies, and then you blink an eye and then they're in the next stage of clothes and they're in the 6 months, 9 months, and you're constantly changing their clothes. And then the toddlerhood hits, and it's this weird phenomenon. They coast in their clothes for a couple years. It's a nice break, but it just kind of shows you that this growth really changes. And so, in a sense, toddlers can afford to be a bit more choosy. And they want to be choosy because they have this sudden need for autonomy, independence, and having their preferences known. And so we just really encourage parents to just keep up that exposure. If they were eating eggs for breakfast when they were a baby and then they stopped, keep offering the eggs, maybe alongside another food that they their preferences. But oftentimes we end up uh, just dropping offering those foods. I'm guilty of it myself too, right? It feels, it's like almost like, what's the point? I would put it in front of them, they never eat it. But we like to say that kids can't learn to like foods or relearn to like foods that they never see. And to keep up that exposure uh, with the joy. So again, we might have that nutrition goal. Like, okay, these eggs, they have all this choline in them that they need for their brain. But we know that the path to getting to that goal is through joy and not through, again, probably a broken record, say it again, but some of those pressure tactics.
No, I think that's such an important reminder, and thank you for that. Since I have a 10-month-old and we're getting there, always going back to that kind of taking the pressure off is so needed. So now that we've started feeding, let's talk a little bit about how we feed. So Jessica, what does responsive feeding look like in practice?
Yeah, again, so another transition into toddlerhood. Before this, responsive feeding looked like watching your baby for their hunger cues and excuse me, and then feeding them on demand. And so whenever they were hungry, you're feeding and you're watching. Okay, when they're full, you stop. But then as we get into starting solids and toddlerhood, it switches. And as the parent, the caregiver, we get to set that meal and snack schedule. And then the child still gets to respond as to whether they'll eat or how much they'll eat. And then part of that responsiveness is like you start out with a meal and snack schedule. Kids need to eat roughly every 2 to 3 hours as a rule of thumb. And then you can kind of play around with that because each kid is going to be unique. As an anecdotal story with my oldest son, when he was a toddler, I was like, okay, here's kind of a schedule. We're going to have breakfast, lunch, nap, snack, and then supper. And I was noticing that he just wasn't really eating supper at all. And I was like, okay, there actually isn't too much time in between his snack and when we're having supper. So maybe I will remove that snack, move dinner up a little earlier and see what happens, see if he's grumpy, showing signs that he needs to eat. But he was totally fine. And it really surprised me that, he was, for him, having a longer time period in between was better because then his appetite for dinner was just right back up. And then as the years went on, then, we added that snack back in because they realized, oh, he needs it now. And so that's a little bit about how responsive eating can look and change as you get into those toddler years. And
Just
again, yeah, sorry.
no, go.
Again, respecting those cues for hunger and fullness. We sometimes we have an expectation of what we think the amount of food is that they should be eating. But like Nita had said, they're born with these intuitive eating instincts. And our job as the parent is to help preserve that over time. And again, if you are noticing that, okay, maybe you're like even subtly trying to bribe or encourage your child, like you've made this beautiful salmon dish and you're like, awesome, they're going to get these amazing omega-3 fatty acids for their brain, and then they don't want anything to do with it. And you're like, oh my goodness, where are they going to get the omega-3 fatty acids? And Katharine's going to go into this in more detail, but thankfully we have wonderful innovative products on the market like Brainiac, which we should call in the scientific world like functional foods that include some of these important nutrients in ways that in forms of food that our kids are naturally more inclined to enjoy.
That's really great. Something that's come up in my household, I'm sure others on this call can relate, and for anyone on our panel, how do you kind of navigate family members feeding a little differently or who have different perspectives on how you should be feeding your little one?
That's a great question. And one thing that I know, like a lot of us are very conflict adverse, and these conversations can be difficult to have with our family members. But I think starting off with the communication and just stating, like, we're on the same team. We both, um, sorry, my son is waving goodbye to me. Sorry. Um, we're both on the same team here. We're like little Johnny, we both want him to grow up to be a happy, healthy eater. And what I've been learning from the most recent research and the feeding professionals is that this approach is probably going to get us there instead of maybe some different approaches.
That's super helpful. Anyone else have anything?
Gosh, some empathy, right? More than anything else. I've chosen to take the approach with Caroline, that gosh, if my in-laws or my own parents aren't checking all my boxes of like, this is a different texture, this is, you know, something she's feeding herself versus something they're feeding her. To Nita's earlier point, I'm sure there is so much smiling going on and laughing and chuckling and mess that I don't have to clean up. So I'm choosing to celebrate the small win. Um, because that joy outweighs, you know, were you able to sneak some spinach in anywhere for me?
You know what? This conversation actually came up, exact conversation yesterday. My boys are off for the summer, so they're spending extra time at their grandparents. And um, yeah, there's a lot of different perspectives in feeding. And one thing that my friend said, and I've been sitting with it, is like grandparents are allowed to also be grandparents. And so uh, that could mean, and you could interpret that in any other way, but I know for me, that's been, yeah, really liberating to just sort of let it, like learning to let it go. And sometimes, like, in order to just like seek a bit of control, you actually need to let some control go, right? And so I think just relaxing, you know, one experience, one meal isn't gonna be a deal breaker. But if something is really like not sitting well with you at its core, maybe it's like comments being made about your child's size or something like that. Well, yeah, certainly, you know, we want to have deeper conversations that come from honestly a place of trust and of love. And I think then it'll go a lot better. But I know that that's really tricky depending on family dynamics and even what culture you're from. I mean, I'm Punjabi, and Indians, like our love language is like just like feeding people all the time. Like we literally grew up grazing all the time. So I don't expect my in-laws or my mom and dad to suddenly deviate from that.
That's amazing and such like a liberating thing to be like, it's okay, it's just one meal. I love it. So we kind of touched on a stressful topic, but let's dive in a little bit deeper. Nita, what advice do you have for parents who feel anxious about how much or what their baby or toddler is eating?
Hmm. You know what? Catherine like kind of nailed it with that word that she used, and that's like empathy. And I want to take a moment to just empathize with anyone who is in the thick of mealtime stress. And it is absolutely a huge source of anxiety, worry. It can often be what's perpetuating, you know, postpartum anxiety for a lot of the people that we work with. And so I think if you are really, really struggling, a gentle reminder, we are all here, I think, can unanimously agree, like advocates of mental health support. So if you're really struggling and you need some support, reach out and try your best to get that support. And that being said, I want to also just acknowledge that anxiety when you're trying anything new, like this feeding milestone, is very, very normal. I mean, we almost expect it. Like if you were to suddenly show up for a new job or suddenly like learn to drive on the other side, it would, you'd probably be a little bit anxious. So one question that I often will throw back at someone is, what is your biggest worry? And is that worry really like logical, right? So we might be really worried that our child isn't eating enough, but actually they're growing really well. They're meeting developmental milestones. They're really, really happy. And so just again, tuning in to understand where that worry is coming from. And then secondly, I think all of us, especially those of us that are millennials and Gen Z, we have something that other generations didn't have, which is a smartphone, which means we have access to lots of really good, high quality information, but 10 times as much poor information. So just trying your best to also like understand, where am I getting my information from? Is this too much? Do I need a little bit of a break? And taking that bit of time out for yourself can really, really be supportive, because there's so many people out there telling you what to feed your baby, what not to feed your baby, how to feed your baby, how much they should be having. And that can start to get really, really overwhelming. My other piece of advice is really making sure that even if you're coming into feeding really with these big feelings, try your best to engage in practices before you feed your baby that can be really calming and centering. So for some of the people I've worked with, it's, doing a prayer, lighting a specific candle. It could even be putting on some music to just help you relax a little bit, because what we want is a non-anxious presence at meal times. And when anxiety levels are really high, often babies can pick up on that, and we project that inadvertently. So those are kind of some strategies. And if I had to say there was one thing that really helped me relax when it came to meal times, it probably was this like faith that I had in a particular feeding framework, and that's the division of responsibility. In case no one's ever heard of this, the division of responsibility is this beautiful feeding framework that was developed by a woman named Ellen Satter. And it's not just like a frou-frou phenomenon. It has lots of research. It's been around since the 1980s. And she really did such a great job of delineating what the parent's role is in feeding and what the child's role is in eating. And I know Jess has kind of already talked a little bit about this when it comes to responsive feeding, but now, the parent really is responsible for that what, when, and where. And your kid gets to decide how much or whether they're going to eat. And so again, that can be very liberating, because if you're doing your job, soon enough your child will be able to, with that trust, come and do their part as well.
That's great. How can parents kind of learn or develop the skills to really trust their child's instincts? Anyone on the panel?
Sure, I can go ahead. I mean, I think certainly watching for those cues, signs of wanting to eat food, and also signs that they're not interested and done. And so that was that responsive feeding that Jessica spent a bit of time chatting a little bit about. And I feel like for any parent that showed up today, you're probably a very responsive parent. I mean, the fact that you're here and like open to learning says a lot about sort of your goals. And so I think every parent is going to have a child with a different temperament. And once you start to understand that temperament, you'll start to understand, okay, yeah, like they're kind of like motioning for more food. Okay, that means they need a little bit more. Or the minute that your child is throwing food onto the floor, okay, yeah, sign that it's done, it's over. And so again, taking that time to like look inward and understand your baby or toddler and their own cues, and your relationship with them will be really supportive and all that. And honestly, like what Ellen says is it's really one giant leap of faith. And that's really what it is too. We can try to our best to have everything be really systematic, but yeah, it is this leap of faith when you are trusting that division of responsibility.
I would also echo thinking about Caroline and how she is very much demonstrating whether she wants to eat something or not, and how much she gets in her mouth on any given day is going to look very different. So I'm all for just having multiple tools in my toolkit. So a number of things that I can give to her that I feel good about, so that I'm not relying on one or two different things that I put on her plate, um, working consistently to give her the nutrients that she needs. We all need that flexibility as parents. God, I'm looking for flexibility anywhere I can get it.
Absolutely. So along those lines, let's kind of shift to the more nutritional side of things. Katharine, why is nutrition such a big piece of supporting brain development, especially in toddlers?
Yeah, so toddlers' brain development is being fueled by the nutrients that they're getting, right? So I think about early days. They're getting those nutrients through formula or through breast milk. That the importance of nutrition doesn't stop when they transition to solids after formula or after breast milk. And it's such an important period of time. Nita touched on earlier, this first 1,000 days in baby's life is so critical to their overall body development. But specifically thinking about the brain, it's a period in time where their brains grow more rapidly in the first 1,000 days than they do in any other period of their lifetime. So if we can go back one slide, Nita, I'll talk about these first two nutrients. So Brainiac as a company, we were started by two dads who both had, I think, 3 kids under 5 or 6 at the time. And they were really focused on how do we build brain nutrition into our kids' daily routines, knowing we're packing their lunch boxes every day. I want to make sure that I am feeding their brain. Those two founders, Mark and Jonathan, created our Science and Nutrition Advisory Board. So we started talking to neurologists, pediatricians, academics to really understand in this really crucial period of the first 1,000 days, what do their brains need? And on the flip side, what are they not getting as part of their diet? What does the literature, what does the research show that they're not getting that they need more of to fuel their brains? And these two nutrients specifically that are in all of Brainiac's products on shelves were resoundingly well heard by this team of experts that they are not getting what they need. So omega-3s and choline, as you can see, they're such pivotal building blocks of the brain and of brain development. You can find them in our brains. They help with things like memory and mood and learning and cognition. But as the science shows, we're not getting enough of it. Nita, if you can look at the next slide, this slide just really shows the gap that we're trying to bridge in this first 1,000 days. So we're showing from when baby's born to 3 years old, there's a gap, and the gap really starts to grow around this transition to solids. So that is Brainiac's mission. That's my mission, is to try and make it a little bit easier for parents to feed their kids the nutrients that their brains need, that we're not getting enough of in their daily diets. And if we move to this next slide, let's talk about how we can build the nutrients into their diets, thinking about all the tools in our toolkits. So omega-3s, specifically omega-3 DHA, which is a building block of the brain. It's a fatty acid that's found in fatty fish in particular, like salmon and tuna. I'll speak for Caroline. Sometimes if I've done my grocery shopping for the week, myself, my husband, and Caroline will get a salmon fillet at dinner. For her, I'll mash it up into some mashed potatoes, or sometimes I'll make a little fish cake. Sometimes my grocery shopping doesn't happen and I try and open up a can of tuna, but that's smelly and stinky for me. So sometimes Caroline isn't as into it as I'd like her to be. Similarly, choline, another nutrient that toddlers' brains need that they're not getting enough of, that's found in things like broccoli and cauliflower and eggs. I know Caroline right now is really loving scrambled eggs, so I'll make that for her most mornings. But broccoli and cauliflower and cruciferous vegetables have been really tough to work in most days. I don't know if we want to continue to, maybe I'll close with how Brainiac can help, how we can be a solution for you all. So if we look at these two nutrients, omega-3s and choline, Brainiac, as I said, you can find us on the shelves of Walmart, Target, we're in Costco. We've got a couple launches coming up, as well as Sam's Club. So you can find us all across the country in both the toddler and lunchbox aisles. We sell things like pouches and fruit snacks and juices. One pouch for us packs about the omega-3s found in a kid serving of fish and enough choline that you would get from like 2 cups of cauliflower. So what Brainiac's really trying to do is be a really delicious tool in your toolkit to say, hey, I want to throw this into my diaper bag so that I know that I've got a nutritious solution on the go that they'll enjoy, and that I know packs the nutrients that they may not always get in their diet as they're getting far more selective.
That's really great. So for each of you, what's your favorite Brainiac product?
Why don't I start? Because I'm biased, and these are all like my work babies, so to speak. My favorite is actually this first one. So those Neuro Plus smoothies, they were a long time coming. You can find them on your Target shelves. The inspiration behind those Neuro Plus smoothies, it's the only product on the shelf that includes a nutrient called MFGM. You know, we talk a lot about omega-3s and choline. These pouches also contain MFGM. It's a type of fat found specifically in breast milk. This product I was creating as I was pregnant with Caroline, and it was inspired by this prompt of like, how do I continue all of the positive nutrition that I know is in formula and that I know is in breast milk? So those NeuroPlus smoothies really aim to be a really great solution as you're starting that first transition from solids, to take a ton of inspiration from the nutrients found in breast milk, like MFGM and omega-3s and choline, but in a really convenient format that you can put on a spoon. I put it into smoothies for Caroline. Happy Healthy Eaters did a post about puree pancakes and how to just put puree into a pancake, and Caroline's been loving those too. So that's my favorite product right now.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to echo Katharine. Like, I would say, as a like my dietitian lens, I love the Neuro Plus smoothies, and I think the cinnamon one is my favorite. Like, I enjoy it myself. But if I'm kind of like a kid at heart, and I really love fruit snacks, and they did a great job. These are like tasty, like super delicious. You kids are gonna love them. And then they also get that omega, like the brain boost.
Yeah, and for me, of all seasons, fall is kind of my favorite. I don't know if it's because I like fall fashion, but their veggie blend, there's a pumpkin one, and it's super delicious. And we had actually used that when we did a trial of the fruit pouch pancake, and it ended up being really, really delicious. So I love my pumpkin all year round.
I love it. I want to make sure we have time to cover questions from everyone who's here. So with that being said, I'll start off with Kimberly's question. What if all they'll eat is pasta or rice or potatoes? How can we get them to eat the veggies and the proteins?
Do you want me to take that one, Jess? Okay, I can take that one. So,
Oh, you say, okay, sorry.
yeah. So you've got a kiddo who only is interested in carbohydrates. So we've done like a really good actually blog post about these kids. We call them the beige food kids. And so number one, it's so totally normal. Number two, despite what you might hear about foods like bread and pasta, there actually is quite a bit of nutrition in these foods. So we see often these foods might offer your baby, especially here in North America, a lot of our flour is enriched. So they're getting B vitamins, they might be getting a little bit of iron and some fiber, depending on what you're choosing. And the third thing that I would encourage you to do, because it sounds like you're a family that does eat meat and your kiddo is a little bit off meat, that's very, very normal. And a part of that reason is actually they don't have some of the tools they need to actually chew some of that meat. So if I was to open my mouth, you really need your back teeth to help you grind up a lot of that meat. And so when it's getting stuck in some of your babies or toddlers' teeth, they get frustrated and they don't know how to kind of get it out of that little groove in their tooth. So they decide, okay, this is annoying. I'm not going to try it anymore. So what I would encourage you to do is try to cook your meat in using different methods. And actually, Catherine's the chef here, so maybe she has better ideas than I do, but something like pulling out your Instant Pot and like really stewing your beef might be really, really fun. A lot of parents think that when you're in toddlerhood, you still don't use seasoning and salt, but actually you can start to incorporate that and try to make it a bit more tasty. Another suggestion is dips. Like the vast majority of young children love to dip. They're going to make a mess of it before they actually learn to eat that dip. But if you slice that meat really, really tiny, I mean, like literally like smaller than my pinky nail, and just let them dip that in, say, tzatziki or a bit of hummus or like Italian dressing or ranch, that dressing is going to cover that entire piece, and they can put it in their mouth, and it adds a bit of that moisture so that they can chew well, but also flavor. Most dips are really tasty. We're planning to do a bit of like a couple of posts around ketchup because parents are really worried about ketchup. But the truth is dips can actually really be used as a vehicle to help your kid learn to like those foods that contain lots of nutrients like iron that are in a lot of the meats. And then maybe my final tip is explore legumes. I mean, legumes are things like lentils and chickpeas and beans, and they can often be a bit more easier to chew, but they do contain some of that iron and that protein as well.
Perfect. I think I know the answer to this, but we'll ask it. How do you feel about pouches? I typically give my 1-year-old a fruit veggie pouch to help get nutrients.
Yeah, so I think there's things to think about, both the format and then what's actually in the pouch. So first, what's in the pouch? Brainiac, obviously, we've got this focus on the brain building nutrients. We are also ultra conscious of, particularly in our little Brainiac space, for those toddlers, of choosing organic fruit and vegetable purees. We are clean label certified. So being very thoughtful about what's in the pouch. And then the actual format, I appreciate pouches as a parent because of how convenient they are. I can throw them in a diaper bag if we're on the go. I can keep them in my cupboard, ready to go at a moment's notice. And I love the versatility that they give me. I am typically squeezing out what's in the pouch for Caroline. I'm either putting it on a spoon or I'm putting it in the bowl that her oatmeal or her yogurt goes in as well, and allowing her to spoon or spooning it in for her, dependent on the day. But I love them for the versatility, and for us as a brand, if I want it to be a solution for parents. And so if a pouch is what works for me day in and day out, that solution for brain development far outweighs any considerations on the format for me.
Perfect. From Heather, my son is a year old and we're in the process of weaning the bottle. We offer milk during the meal times, but the volume he consumes is not nearly as much as how much he drinks from a bottle. On top of that, his solid food intake is not great yet. Worried that if we cut the bottles, his calorie intake will drop significantly.
I guess I would have maybe some follow-up questions, like, is the milk at meal in addition to these bottles at other times? And I mean, what is the total volume throughout the day? So around at a year, we don't want to see if it's like transition to cow's milk, because cow's milk is really low in iron. It's super nutritious in other ways, but not complete. We don't want them to drink more than 2 to 3 cups in a 24-hour period. So maybe look at the total volume throughout the day. And then sometimes, yeah, people feel like that's kind of like their security, like the milk. But then oftentimes when they do cut out that bottle, that's when the appetite increases for those solid foods because the child was simply filling up on their preferred milk food. I hope that answers.
Yeah, if you have any follow-ups, Heather, feel free to drop that in the chat too. I'm gonna guess this is about Brainiac. Are you in Canada?
Not yet.
Not yet, but stay tuned. Not yet, but stay tuned.
Okay.
Okay, from Katie, my 2-year-old wakes up every morning and immediately asks for an apple, veggie pouch, Costco brand organic fruits and veggies. Is that okay to start with in the morning, 1 to 2 pouches? He chugs them standing up.
I can take that one. I think, again, if we go back to that feeding framework and what I want you to do as a parent is I want you to be the one to decide what you're offering, right? Because in this situation, it sounds like your kiddo is kind of demanding that and then you're offering, and I'm just worried that that might start to pick up and accelerate. And so if we give it to them in the morning when they're demanding it, then they're going to be confused and wonder, well, how come at 2 p.m. and then at 7 p.m. I don't get it? So I think at this age, your kid's 2 years old, a visual schedule can be so, so helpful. So you could even just like on a wall, have a visual schedule for them. And then you could even like put the picture of the pouch so they know to expect it. Or some days, actually, that could not be on the menu and you could have a different option and then just point to them, today we're not getting that. We're going to get this food. Oh, I see you really want that. Mama knows that you want that, but it's not on the menu today. We're going to have this. But I think that's a really good idea. We're going to put it on the menu tomorrow. And so with toddlers, it's a lot of repetition. But the big thing here is I really want the parent to be the one to kind of take that initiative and leadership to say that, yeah, this is what's on the menu. Because when they're old enough and they want like, I don't know, like lemon meringue or something else for breakfast, you're going to need to have those skills of practicing setting those boundaries because, yeah, sometimes you're not always going to have that food available.
Super helpful. From Kimberly, how much salt can they have? I believe she has a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I have to admit, like off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact milligrams of the sodium and the toddlerhood. At a year old, the baby's kidneys are fully developed and able to handle that solute load. So from that point of view, you can be a little more liberalized. In general, for across the ages, if you are mostly eating whole foods, home prepared foods that are lightly salted, like you don't have to worry about how much they're getting. It's just more so when there's a lot of prepackaged foods that tend to have a lot of salt in them. That's where we would want to limit those.
Mhm. And a lot of that actually has to do with when Jess and I studied the sodium piece, you know, one of the challenges is if children and young toddlers are really used to having very, very salty foods, and again, we're talking about more of the foods that might be a bit more ultra processed, is they grow up to be, adolescents and teenagers that then gravitate towards those tastes. And so, just making sure that the sodium isn't crowding out their ability to also tolerate other tastes like bitterness is really, really important. And I think if my memory jogs me correct, I think it's no more than 1,200 milligrams, but I also don't want you sitting there and calculating sodium. Any means.
But again, at this age, a little bit of salt in our food can make it really enjoyable. I know I don't want to sit down and eat like steamed broccoli without anything on it. Like that's not very appetizing. And so it's kind of nice at this age. It's another tool, as Kathleen said, like in our toolbox that we can use to make food more joyful.
Catherine Caroline might like some of those cruciferous vegetables after you after
Yeah.
she one and you start salting it.
No, you're so right. You're like, if I think about how my husband and I eat broccoli, you know, it's certainly not without salt. It's also certainly not without fat, a little olive oil and a little butter. And we've been trying to transition to just giving her what we eat versus, doing things specifically for her. So I think you're totally right.
Okay, our last question. My child eats really slow, but we need to get to daycare on time. Anything I could give to speed it up? I know we don't want to watch the clock, but I need to get going. Takes them 30 minutes to eat sometimes.
I would wonder how old this child is. If they're in the toddler age, then maybe a visual timer can help. That can, 1 year old, maybe at that they can start to see like how much time they have left to eat. And like maybe the first meal, it's, they're not going to get it, but it's like, okay, the timer's up, it's time to go. And then actually leaving, then the next day they're like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna watch this timer a bit more, because 30 minutes is definitely adequate amount of time, unless at this age maybe you'd want to see a feeding specialist to rule out any anatomical maybe feeding challenges, in case that is a legitimate reason why they need to take a long time.
Oh, Khaki, I see. That's
I'm
okay.
so sorry. I'm just gonna walk in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, this conversation has been amazing, you guys. Any last minute tips and tricks that you have?
Not at all. I think we covered a lot of ground personally.
Yeah.
Just a reminder too, to follow Brainiac Foods, and you'll see us kind of pop in on their feed from time to time. But you're also welcome to follow us at Happy Healthy Eaters. And both Jess and I just want to also take a moment to express so much gratitude to both Auggie, but also Brainiac. We've never really. It's hard for us to take time to kind of meet in community virtually, but I think that we learn so much from each other when we do take that time. And yeah, from a group of moms to another group of moms, like we're in it with you. So we hope you have a good rest of the week. And I don't know, Catherine, if you want to add anything in.
No, I would just echo, it's why I joined Brainiac. It's a company founded by parents. So working with two other really like-minded companies, run by busy moms and busy parents, is always really gratifying and inspiring. So just know we're in it with you every day.
Okay, awesome.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I have enjoyed this conversation so much from Augie and everywhere. Yeah, hope to stay in touch with all of you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Hi.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.